Used to a Mac.
All right, let's get started. Calling the meeting to order at 7:08. Welcome. So thank you guys again so much for joining us. Let's start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
About a week or two. We'll send a letter this week.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Send a copy of the
of
extra.
the United States of
And he'll
America,
just- the first time he'll just
the
talk
republic
about-
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great. Welcome. Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Aye.
Second.
Second, Wally, second. Everybody in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay. All right, so we'll start with some administrative stuff tonight. I am just gonna mute the couple folks who aren't mute right now. Beautiful. Okay. Perfect. All right. So first order of business is the upcoming board elections. The Orange County Post did publish the election announcement last Friday, November 12th, regarding the 3 seats up for election on December 14th. So here are Beaver Dam Lake board elections are December 14th. Mark your calendar from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. as it has been in previous years. There are 2 seats in New Windsor, 3-term seats open, and 1 in Cornwall, a 2-year term up for election. So residents wishing to run for our awesome and amazing board will need to collect 20 signatures on their petitions. So as of this Friday, the instructions for the petitions, the election announcement, and the petitions themselves will be available on the Orange County Beaver Dam Lake website. You can also email us at bdlboard@gmail.com if you would like that sent directly to your email. And you must reside within the section of the district in which you are running. So if you're in, if you want to run for one of the New Windsor seats, you have to be in New Windsor. If you want to run for Cornwall, you have to live in Cornwall. When you vote, you can vote for all of the seats. You don't, if you're from Cornwall, you also vote for the New Windsor seats, okay? So again, the election is going to be held on December 14th from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. in our community building, and all residents eligible to vote in Orange County are able to vote in that election here in Beaver Dam. All residents of Beaver Dam who are allowed to vote in Orange County can vote in that election. So as soon as the nominating petitions get turned into DPW, we will announce the candidate names. So I don't find out who else is running until it will be after December 3rd when the petitions are due to DPW. So that is upcoming board election information. And again, we're going to post that all on the website, and I'll share it out on the Facebook group if you follow that as well. So you'll have that. And you may have community members walking around asking for signatures on their petitions. So, you know, please be aware of that. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is winterization preparations. Wally, you want to talk about a little bit what you guys did for that last week?
I will. Just on the board elections, Erica, currently there are no, all vacancies are currently filled, correct? So these 3 positions that are open are currently occupied by our current board members. Correct? Are we allowed to say who they are or not?
Yeah, we're allowed to say who they are. I occupy one of the seats. Dave Miskovic occupies another, and Larry Weinberg occupies our Cornwall vacancy.
And they're all doing an excellent job, might I add.
Thank you.
Okay, so now for the winterization preparations, you know, being on a lake is fun, but now we got to transition into the winter aspects. The first thing from it was a carryover from the last meeting. We have the buoys that we had down at the dam to instruct everybody to keep back 100 feet from the dam. I got in touch with the manufacturer of the buoys, and they said because of the materials used for them, they highly recommend remove them to prevent damage from the ice sheets when the lakes do freeze over. So Kevin Boyle, thank you to you and the 7-person team you put together to go remove the buoys. I deeply appreciate it. They were able to do it safely with no injuries, and they got it done quickly. So thank you. Great job, Kevin. It's pretty much on the winterization. We're going to add more. I think, Erica, in December, I think we need, it was something somebody had requested to discuss ice safety. So I think that's something we probably want to include in the next discussion for December in that meeting.
Yes, let's hope our lake is not frozen over before that.
I agree.
All right, thank you. Little update on the dam project, nothing major new. The DPW inspections are continuing in accordance with approved refill plan for the next 12 months. And we need input from the DPW on inspection plans following the completion of the first year. So we are, still inspecting and keeping up with our dam project, and we will share information as we get it. Next order of business is parking and boat permits. So Tom Lark, our wonderful maintenance gentleman here, is completing an inventory of all the boats on all the reserves this week to determine how many, where they are located, if there are any that seem that they are abandoned, and where the unmarked boats are. So he's going to submit that to the board for next week. And that is a project that Dave Miskovic and Larry Weinberg have taken up to try and get some of the boats that have been abandoned on the reserves removed. So again, like we say every month, if you don't have a tag for your boat, get a tag for your boat. As always, I'll put in the show notes for this YouTube video the link to the permits. There's also permits in the like hard copies of them in the info box right outside the community building door. So if you need a hard copy of those, that's how you can get them. You return them by mailing them back in. Please do not just drop them back in that info box. And there's really clear instructions attached to the permit application. So if you don't have them, get them, especially for your boats right now, because we are inventorying them and looking to clean up some of our reserves.
Erica?
Mm-hmm.
I guess if everyone also can tell their neighbors, if someone knows that they have a boat or a kayak that's on the properties that that maybe someone knows is not registered. We certainly don't want to take anyone's property at the end of the day. So if you know your neighbor, pass the word along if they're not on the meeting. That would be greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
And I'll send it out via email too, so that we can give folks just a real heads up on that. We'll launch right into the Lake Health Committee, which I know met last night. Walter, you want to chat about that?
I will do that. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can and not repeat as much as last night. We typically generally try to have a monthly Lake Health Committee, but we were behind on those. I apologize on that. But we have a very enthusiastic group. And let me start out by saying the Lake Health Committee, basically it's a volunteer group of individuals who want to be involved to help make things better for the lake. Every resident is invited to it, and every resident that wants to be part of it is more than welcome to be part of it. I'm going to talk about a couple different areas. One is lake treatments. In 2021, we did not spend any money associated with lake treatments because we basically did not need to. So that closes out 2021. With relative to the taking down the cattails, though, there was $10,000 that we were going to use for the purpose of algicide treatments in the 2021 that we didn't use. So we got an additional contract to actually deal with the cattails that a lot of residents were upset with. So we were able to reallocate some of that money to be able to do that. There were 3 steps which we talked about last time, and I'm not going to go through all in detail like I did last time. But first was the company came out and they did an application of an herbicide on the designated cattails and aquatic weeds that we wanted to try to clear out for the homeowners so they could access the lake. That was done back on September 27th. The contractor was coming back this month to take a look at and see if every area that needed to be addressed was addressed. That was that part, and we did have at least one resident that wrote to us and said, hey, they didn't see any effects, and we gave that address directly to the vendor to make sure he took another look at it. So the first part was to spray the cattails. And that gets, when they spray it, it basically gets down into the root and kills the bulb of the cattail so it doesn't grow back in future years, which is the purpose of that. The next step now to make things to create the ability to actually cut them down now, we have to do a drain down. Right now, we're working with Orange County DPW, the DEC, Pond and Lake Connection. The ideal drain down would be 2 feet. I think we're going to pretty much go for about 18 inches. So they say 1 to 2 feet. So we're going to split the difference, go with 18 inches. DPW is totally on board. We've been talking with them. They actually feel that they're going to use the 18-inch sluice gate, and they feel they're going to be able to conduct the drain down for a desired drawdown of the 18 inches. They feel it's about 3 days. I think that's optimistic. So we'll try to get them moving ahead of that. DEC was contacted because of our lake. We would not require a permit for conducting that. And Pond to Lake Connection, who's the vendor who will be doing the final phase of cutting the mulch, they're actually going to provide some oversight as we do the drain down as well, so we meet any criteria. Like I said, DPW indicated they can support the drawdown. They expect it to be about 3 days. And once the level is maintained, I believe we're probably going to maintain it there for about 1 week, a very, very short window of time, which is what although the permit's not required, it's what the DEC would expect. So we're going to try to hold it for no longer than a week. Pond and Lake Connection believe that they could actually complete all the work they need to do during that drawdown in 1 day. So that gives them plenty of time. But during that drawdown, if you are a homeowner, it gives you an opportunity to get out there and clean up your shoreline or do whatever else you might want to do during it. During the drawdown, like I said, Pond and Lake Connection, they'll be coming out. They're going to use equipment called a Marshmaster. They're going to be cutting about 2.1 acres of cattails and phragmites. One of our board members, Fred, thank you, raised the question, hey, one of our goals we're trying to do is reduce the loading inside the lake. Is there a way we can actually remove the cattails while they're cutting them down? And the unfortunate part is their equipment they use, it actually mulches it up, so it's not practical for it. They don't have the capability to physically do that. So it's not really part of what they were doing. But as a homeowner, if you would like to go out and help reduce the nutrient loading in the lake and take some of it out, that'd definitely be appreciated. And so that's kind of like 2021. In 2022, then, we're working to get the contract in place to do the treatments for the lake. Right now, we the board have done everything we possibly can do at this point. We provided everything to the DPW. They're aware of our timelines. We don't want to get caught short like we did last year where things take 2 to 3 months. So they understand that, and they're starting it right away here in January with expectations by February and March we'll be well into the process so we have it ready for the beginning of the season next year. That is lake treatments. The lake drawdown we talked about earlier. We're going to be doing a 18-inch drawdown for the purpose of being able to facilitate the removal of the cattails. But during that time, it gives you homeowners the capability to go out and clean up what they can. If you have pontoon boats or other boats on the lake that requires you to get them off before we do the drawdown, I recommend you do that. The dates we were shooting for to do drawdown was either the week of December 6th or December 13th. I'd say it's going to be more like the week of December 13th. But if you have the boats on the water or anything else, the personal equipment you want to get out of the lake, I recommend you do it before then. And then again, it's just should be about a week for lake homeowners to go in and do any cleanup that they want to do. Talk a little bit about grants. There was an old grant that it was awarded to Beaver Dam Lake for the purpose of controlling aquatic infestation. It was a $100,000 grant. It was kind of like dying on the vine, wasn't being used. We worked with the DPW to get the window extended on that grant to July 9th of 2022, which is now out there. So we, the board, will be looking at what can we use to be able to use that money towards improving the lake health. Lake testing, I'm not going to go too deep on this. The preliminary, Northeast Aquatic was the company that we contracted to do the sampling for us. They did provide us preliminary results and recommendations. We held a meeting with them on their results and what actions they recommended, and ultimately where they were coming from is that we didn't have enough data and they would suggest more testing. I'm not a big proponent of confusing activity with accomplishment, so we're working with Northeast Aquatic to say, when we spend money, we need to say, what are the actions going to be? We're also putting together a volunteer group from the Lake Health Committee, and we're requesting a meeting with Northeast Aquatics as a result of our meeting yesterday. to help gain their insights and input from their familiarity with our lake relative to what we should be doing for testing for our lake. There were some sediment samples that were taken back in the May timeframe that Northeast Aquatics took. It was part of their proposal. Those samples were sent out to Seattle, and it was dragging out forever trying to get results on them. Ultimately, what happened, the lab did get back to Northeast Aquatics and advised them that for whatever reason, they're not going to be evaluating the samples, and the samples are no longer usable. So in light of that, we are working with DPW to ensure no monies are being paid out relative to that. And then C-SLAP testing is complete, other than saying that the results, first of all, thank you, Fred, Molly, and Kevin, and anybody else that was involved with that. They did a great job, did all the C-SLAP testing for the lake. It's valuable, not just us, but New York State. And those results will not be available till about the springtime. Anyone add that, Fred, at all?
No, nothing at all.
Okay. I'm trying to cover as much as I can to respect everybody's time because we got a lot to talk about. Next one, a lot of people are interested in is the fish restocking. Put a lot of effort into this over the last 30 days. The board has consulted with 4 hatcheries, the Department of Environmental Conservation, the DPW, Pond and Lake Connection, and Northeast Aquatics to develop our plan. So there's a lot of interfaces going on to try to bring this together. We reviewed the available data from the DEC from a 2017 fish collection that they had prepared. And basically what that told us is what fish were in our lake. They identified species of fish that were in there. There were a total of 6, and I was surprised to see that they actually had eels in there as well. From that, we selected 3 species that we want to restock our lake with. It's actually really 2 species. So, because I'll talk a little bit about this as we proceed, but it's going to be largemouth bass, bluegills, and minnows. We reviewed the recommended fish stocking rates with the hatcheries. And what that means is we have a 164-acre lake, and what they say is how many fish do you want to put per acre, and there is an optimum number. What their numbers were is 100 per acre for bass, 300 per acre of bluegills, and 10 pounds of minnows per acre. Unfortunately, based on our budget, we have a $15,000 budget that was allocated to this. We can afford to stock about 18% of the desirable levels. It's not a bad thing. It's just going to take longer to ultimately get to where we need to be. But with our budget where it's currently at, we can stock up to about 18%. We need to get a communication. Again, I talked to the DEC at length, and I talked to the hatcheries at length, and I said, what's the downside of people bringing fish in from the river and the lakes to help move things? And the answer was, that's one of the worst things you could possibly do, because it runs the risk of introducing diseases into the lake that'll ultimately wipe out the fish that we're going to be paying money to put in the lake. So if you or anybody else has desire to actually bring fish into the lake, if you would please share that with everybody. Don't do that, because it's going to be working against us. The time frame for making all this happen now, we can't submit for a restocking permit, which is the first step, until January. So I'll be doing that January 2nd. In February, we'll finalize. And again, I talked to 4 hatcheries. They're awesome people. They're all great, but they all have their pluses and their minuses. So I'll be dealing with them more in February. And then from there, I'll talk to Erica and we'll talk to the DPW about what's really involved to have to finalize our selection there, but we'll do that in February. When we put the fish into the lake, they need to be able to survive. There's a couple things they need. One is food, one is oxygen. So we need to work with Northeast Aquatics in the March timeframe to take additional dissolved oxygen measurements to ensure the survivability of the fish before we start restocking it. But when I did talk to the hatcheries, they weren't really that crazy upset about looking into that, because they said the fish will go to the shallower areas and it's not going to be a big deal. We'd still like to take a look at the dissolved oxygens, though, and at least at minimum to work with Northeast Aquatics to make sure we're not throwing money out in the wind. And so if we do the testing in the water in March, then we'll be looking at April and May then to actually do the restocking. Different fish have different targets when you want to restock, and the bulk of everything we're putting into our lake or anything that was in our lake is actually spring restocking. And per all the hatcheries, the earliest you could ever do that is April and May. So we'll be in line with that. The only difference with that would be yellow perch, and they recommend to do that in the fall. That completes a high level of that as well for the fish restocking. Any questions at all?
No.
Any board members have to add anything at all?
As far as the drawdowns that we're going to be seeing, hopefully the DPW will take into account any storms that might come up so that they could get down to the levels that we need. So, you know, we've had that in the past where we've had these big storms that could have flushed out some of the nutrients. Hopefully they'll be pretty much on call so that if there is a storm event during that time, that they'll be able to react instead of waiting until it gets passed.
What Larry brings up is a really good point. It's more than just opening up the sluice gates and lowering down to 18 inches. You got to be able to maintain it at the 18 inches. So basically your inflow and your outflow got to be matched as close as you possibly can. So yes, they have to be on board to go out and make adjustments daily to make sure we stay where we need to be. Have anything, Fred, Dave?
No.
Christine? No questions? Okay, we're all done with questions here in the room.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to our discussion about our budget. So this is a bit different than we've been able to do it in the past because we're on Zoom instead of in person. So I wanted to explain first kind of the difference between the two taxes that you get charged here when you live in Beaver Dam. So there's really two budgets. There's the O&M budget, which is the operation maintenance budget, and that is for the 8 reserves, including the beach and the lake management strategies and the employee that we hire here to do all of those work. So all the equipment that we need, everything that we need to upkeep the reserves, you know, the sand for the beach down to the rubber bands we need for the office. That's O&M budget. All of the lake treatments, fish restocking, that's part of the O&M budget, right? The other part of the budget is the capital budget, which has to do with the dam. So that project has to do, or that tax has to do with what was borrowed in order to construct our dam, the engineering associated with our dam, and the planning. So tonight we're going to focus on the O&M budget, which is the board makes a recommendation as to what the budget's going to be, and then the county reviews it, makes some shifts to it if they deem necessary, and then approves a budget for the lake. So every house, whether you live in Blooming Grove, whether you're lakefront, Lakeview, all of the houses pay the same O&M budget. The capital budget is different based upon, or the capital taxes are different based upon like a points system, and it's allocated based on how much lakefront property that you own. If you're lakefront, Lakeview, or further back away from the lake, there's kind of 3 tiers, and your property is awarded points based on how much property you have. So your capital tax is really going to be different. What we're talking about tonight is the O&M budget, is which the board proposes for our reserves, our lake treatments, and that is uniform across every household in the district. So in 2020, we experienced a surplus at the end of the year because we didn't spend all of the money that had been requested. So this year, what's great is we were able to utilize $75,000 of that surplus and apply it to this year to reduce our taxes. So at the bottom line, we're reducing our taxes because we took 75 from surplus because we just didn't spend it in 2020. Last year, your O&M tax was, which is again, what you pay to live in Beaver Dam Lake minus the dam project. Last year, they were $315.86. And this year, that number is reduced to $254.93. So you'll see a reduction in your O&M taxes, which we are happy to report this year. Most everything, even since 2019, has been kept relatively uniform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the entire budget on the line by line, all the nitty gritty right on the Beaver Dam Lake website. So everybody can access it and see exactly down to, you know, what we're spending on every office supply. So you can ask questions and review and provide some feedback to that. But I did want to highlight some big changes that we made to the budget this year. So the first major shift dealt with the personnel lines in our budget. So last year, one of the big cuts was last year, the board cut a positions for an operations staff member for $30,000. It had never been filled, but it had been budgeted and taxed for. So we just eliminated that position because it hadn't been filled and we had no intention of filling it this year. There was also a large personnel cost associated with beach operations around lifeguard salaries and supervising lifeguard salaries. So the board was able to actually get some quotes from local companies that would potentially take over the management of our beach. So the advantages to this would be that board members wouldn't have to be responsible for managing the beach every day and managing the lifeguards. And a management company would also be able to have a pool of lifeguards to pick from on any given day that are qualified for our beach. So if we have a call out right now, we may have to shut down the beach, right? If we don't have a lifeguard for that day, we may have to shut down the beach versus if we went with a management company, they could, have a lifeguard replaced. In a perfect world, although it's not deemed necessary by Department of Health, but in a perfect world, we would have 2 lifeguards on duty at all times so that the beach wouldn't have to be closed in the event, if lifeguard has to use the bathroom or take a lunch break, and it would be easier for the lifeguards to switch on and off. So this would just be much easier with a beach management company. They would handle all of the staffing, all of the training of the lifeguards, all of the mid-season training exercises of the lifeguards. That would all be handled by the beach management company. And what was amazing was when we got it quoted, it was pretty darn close to the same price that we were just paying for the lifeguard salaries, and actually a little bit cheaper than how we're running it currently. So we decided to shift the money. So it's essentially stayed the same. We've shifted the money from the personnel line down to a contractor line, which would allow us to do that. Now, we had done this last year too, but we didn't have water back until May at our shoreline here at the beach. So when we had done that, it was too late to get a contract in place with an agency. So we were able to do a line item interchange, put it back in the personnel section of our budget and pay lifeguards as we traditionally had in the past. But when you look at the budget, you're going to see consulting fee, and that would be for a beach management company going forward. And that's kind of the plan with that. Another major area of reduction has been in equipment expenses. In 2019, the equipment budget was $15,000. We reduced it in 2020 to just under $3,000 at $2,750. We simply haven't required the same amount of equipment, and therefore we just didn't request it. So we are happy to report the reduced tax rate of the O&M budget this year, even with the inclusion and addition of $15,000 to be allocated toward fish restocking. So we're happy that the O&M taxes are lower. That being said, in the past, the capital tax that we were charged, we will see that go up pretty significantly. And it depends. Different properties are going to pay different rates. You are going to see your capital budget go up just because a lot of the construction loans that were taken out in order to construct our dam are coming due. So that's why you'll see your capital go up, but hopefully this reduction in O&M does offset that a little bit. Do I have any questions from the board on that? And again, I am going to put the entire budget line by line on the website. So I would encourage folks, if you have input on the budget, once you see it all online, I would encourage you to write in with questions to the board at bdlboard@gmail.com and give us any suggestions that you have for the future, any questions or any concerns. Do we have any board questions, additions, or concerns right now?
Just two. First one's a clarification, Erica. You say on the Beaver Dam website, do you mean which website?
I mean the Orange County Beaver Dam Lake website.
Thank you for clarifying. So it's the Orange County DPW website for the Beaver Dam collection. Perfect, thank you. The other one is the cost. I know we don't have a lot of control over the numbers, but are these inflation adjusted?
Are they inflation? We've kept everything pretty steady. We didn't adjust for inflation at this time for anything going forward. Historically, the last 2 years, we've really been significantly under budget with what we've spent, and we are on target to be significantly under budget again this year, which means, again, we would be able to just apply that surplus and offset taxes in future years.
Okay. Now, One of the questions I got asked yesterday, Erica, you might be able to help me, for the Lake Health Committee, as we come up with projects we want to launch, would we be able, do we have line items in the current budget to deal with things that we come up with in the Lake Health?
So generally we would need to, budget for those in advance. What we do have in the budget is, I can tell you, we have kept a flat fee for all of the lake treatments that we have had in the past. And that's up to 5 algicide treatments and an herbicide treatment. And we kind of flat funded that because we weren't sure what we would really need for the lake. And this year we did in fact have the money in the budget to do all of the things that we wanted to do. Unfortunately, the companies and the process and the red tape involved were challenging. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
But if people do have suggestions and the Lake Health Committee wants to take on certain projects, I would welcome an input, and we can talk about as a board and as a community putting these investments into our budget to improve the health of our lake for sure.
That's what we're trying to get control of, because this is not just today, tomorrow. This is looking out 1 year, 3 or 5 years from now to try to get things where we want it to be.
Yeah, and the further in the future we know about it, the more proactive we can be when we plan the budget for the following year.
Okay. Larry, do you have any questions, comments?
Not at this time. No, not yet.
Okay, Larry's good. Fred, do you have anything?
Nothing.
And Dave, do you have anything?
I do not. When the police side, Erica, by the way.
Thank you. And again, we're going to put it all up on the website. I do want to make sure that people who want to be able to view it have full access to all of the details for it. Alrighty. So I'm saying thank you for keeping the O&M portion reasonable. I'm seeing a question, is the $1 million grant for the dam project approved? It can impact the capital portion of the taxes. I'll find more information out for you about that.
Sorry, what was the question, Erica?
Can you repeat that again, Erica?
Is the $1 million grant for the dam project approved? It would impact the capital portion of the lake taxes. So I can find out more. I can find that out for certain, and I can send that to you in an email.
Okay.
Or I can report out about it at the next meeting so that everybody has that answer.
Oh, I see.
And the next thing we were going to talk about tonight is community events. So I feel like we're so far removed from Halloween now, but I just wanted to give a big thank you. We were thrilled to report that over 100 residents participated in the Halloween trunk-or-treating event held here at the building. It was very successful. So thank you so much to the families who decorated their trunks and donated candy. Special shout out to Larry Weinberg for his huge donation of candy to the event and all of the attention that he gave to it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a big success. People had fun. Kids were in costumes. If you don't follow residents of Beaver Dam Lake on Facebook, there were lots of pictures posted of the event. So it's a great time had by all. I was excited to see not just the kids and young family come down, but a lot of our seniors come down to see one another again and participate and be part of that outdoor event. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that same energy, we are now looking forward to the upcoming holiday season. So I have a resident interested in organizing a house decorating contest, and she would like to form a committee to do so. After just talking about our budget, I can say that $0 of our budget can go toward any of these events. We cannot spend any of our money for the lake on these events. So volunteers and contributions from the community are really important if we want to continue to do these things. If you want to be part of the committee that she's forming and this is Christine Little, our fantastic, wonderful yard sale planner from years past. She has a lot of great ideas about how to do a house decorating contest here in Beaver Dam Lake. So if you want to be on that committee, please email the board so I can forward her your contact information. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and make our community more fun to be in through the holiday season.
Hey,
Also,
Erica, not to cut you off in the middle of that, there's like really, really good ideas, and the attendance for this meeting seems real light. Is that something we could put on the Beaver Dam Facebook page to encourage people to do the same?
Yeah, definitely on the Facebook page, and we'll put it out via email as well. So
Okay.
that we can cast a wide net, because I think that'll be really fun. And stay tuned. We may have some other holiday stuff happening too. I just don't have firm dates on anything yet. So, and at the last meeting, we had a resident request to use the community building for a resident event, or an ongoing resident event, I should say. And it was for a crochet club that is free to residents, and they crochet hats and items for the homeless and those affected by cancer. And I'm going to share out the info again via the email, via Facebook. They had their inaugural meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, last week, I think. And it was successful. They had folks come, they made hats, and they were able to donate it to homeless community right here in Newburgh. So we're really proud to be a part of that. And we thank everybody who attended that. Again, it was free. It was board approved last month, and we're happy to see it up and running in the space being used for that purpose. That's all I have. So if anyone has any questions on the board, let me know.
I do not have any questions. Larry?
No
No,
questions?
I'm good.
Fred, Dave?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Good all.
Did we-
Colette's good. Kevin Boyle, if you're there, you good? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. You know, sometimes he can't turn his mic on. So I open it up. Chat box is easier for any resident questions, comments, or concerns. Any word from the fire department regarding the standpipes on the lake? Have they been tested? Check. Yes, actually. Kevin, are you there? Kevin spoke with the chief of the fire department and actually got that answer. If he's not able to mic in right now, I will get all of the specific information for you, Joe, and get it to you. But he did speak to the chief of the Salisbury Mills Fire Department regarding that. All right, he must have stepped away. I'll get that info to you, Joe. He did follow up on that. Thank you for your email question. Any other questions in the chat box going forward? Okay. I'm not seeing any further questions right now. If you do, always email bdlboard@gmail.com with any of your questions and concerns. And if that's it, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn with TB and present.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All right. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
We've adjourned. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording.